Let me start with something most people miss when they talk about ancient agriculture. For most of human history, farmers did not have the luxury of fertilizers, soil tests, or imported amendments. They worked with exhausted ground, thin topsoil, wind-scoured hillsides and land that modern agronomists would call marginal at best. Yet some societies farmed the same plots for centuries without collapsing their soil. That wasn't luck, it was knowledge. And one crop, quietly grown for over 4,000 years, sits right at the centre of that story. If you're interested in how ancient people survived long-term collapse, fed armies, and rebuilt soil without chemicals, this is one of those subjects that changes how you see farming forever. Stay with me, because within the next few minutes you'll understand why this crop mattered to the Romans, the Greeks, ancient Egyptians, and early pastoral societies, and why it still matters if you care about resilience today. This crop was lupin, and it was never grown by accident. Lupins were cultivated in the Mediterranean and Near East at least 4,000 years ago, and possibly earlier. Archaeological evidence places them in Egyptian storage pits, Greek farm manuals, and Roman agricultural texts. What made lupin special wasn't just that it survived where wheat failed. It actively improved the soil it grew in. Farmers noticed that fields planted with lupin produced better harvests afterward, even if nothing was added. They didn't know about nitrogen fixation, but they understood results. Lupin thrives in sandy, acidic, and nutrient-poor soils where most cereal crops struggle. Its deep taproot breaks compacted ground, pulls minerals from lower layers, and leaves channels behind when it decomposes. Ancient farmers used lupin not only as food and fodder, but deliberately as a soil-restoring crop. That tells you something about how observant they were. The reason lupin rebuilt soil is biological, not mystical. Lupin is a legume, and like other legumes, it hosts nitrogen-fixing bacteria in nodules along its roots. These bacteria pull nitrogen from the air and convert it into a form plants can use. The key detail is this: lupin does not need rich soil to do this. In fact, it performs better than many legumes on poor ground. Over a single growing season, lupin can leave behind significant nitrogen reserves, improving fertility for whatever follows. Ancient farmers often ploughed lupin back into the soil rather than harvesting it. Roman writers like Columella explicitly recommended lupin as green manure, calling it one of the cheapest and most effective ways to restore exhausted land. This wasn't theory. It was tested over generations. Lupin fed people, animals, and soil at the same time. One reason lupin spread so widely is that it served multiple roles. The seeds are extremely high in protein, making them valuable in food-scarce regions. Ancient societies developed soaking and fermentation techniques to remove bitterness and toxins, turning lupin into a staple during shortages. Livestock thrived on lupin fodder, especially goats and sheep, which mattered in dry regions. But even when farmers didn't harvest the seeds, lupin still paid off. The plant's biomass returned organic matter to the soil, improving structure, moisture retention, and microbial life. In marginal environments, this could mean the difference between abandonment and survival. How ancient farmers used lupin in rotation tells us a lot. Lupin was rarely grown alone year after year. Ancient rotation systems often placed it before demanding crops like wheat or barley. The sequence mattered. Lupin softened the soil, added fertility, and reduced weed pressure. The following crop benefited immediately, often producing higher yields without any additional inputs. This is an important lesson for anyone interested in, well, long-term sustainability. Ancient farmers understood that soil was a living system, not just a resource to be mined. Lupin was one of the tools they used to keep that system functional over centuries. You can actually apply this knowledge today without, the ancient hardships. If you're working with poor soil, sandy ground, or land that's been overused, lupin still does what it always did. Modern varieties are even more resilient. You can plant lupin as a cover crop, let it grow until flowering, then cut it down and incorporate it into the soil. Within a season, soil structure and fertility begin to improve. For small-scale growers, lupin works well in rotation before heavy feeders like corn or brassicas. For preppers and survival-minded homesteaders, it offers protein, animal feed, and soil restoration in one crop. That kind of efficiency is exactly why ancient farmers valued it. Lupin explains how societies avoided agricultural collapse. When historians talk about soil exhaustion contributing to societal decline, they often ignore the societies that avoided it. Lupin was part of how some regions kept producing food long after others failed. It wasn't a miracle crop. It was a disciplined, patient solution applied year after year. This matters because it shows that sustainability wasn't invented in the modern era. It was practiced, forgotten, and rediscovered. Lupin is proof that ancient people solved problems we're still struggling with. This is why the past still has practical answers. The crop that grew on poor soils for 4,000 years wasn't glamorous. It didn't build empires by itself, but it quietly supported them by keeping land productive. Lupin reminds us that resilience is often built through boring, repeatable systems rather than dramatic breakthroughs. If you're serious about history, survival, or long-term thinking, this is exactly the kind of knowledge worth revisiting and applying. Ancient farmers weren't guessing. They were observing, adapting, and refining over generations. If you found this valuable, subscribe to The Prepper Historian for more deep dives into forgotten knowledge that still matters. Share this with someone who thinks ancient agriculture has nothing left to teach us. History rewards those who pay attention.